Hi, this is Todd McCutcheon. I work for Bicycle Garage Indy, and I am coming to you from my home today to give you some basic maintenance that you can do that will help you out riding your bike, certainly in the current situation that we're in. And we're going to talk about changing an inner tube. So I'm sure we've all experienced this situation. We're looking to go ride our bike, and then all of a sudden we discover that we might need some air, or possibly the tube might need to be changed. So in this situation, we're actually going to change the tube. So just a couple of tools that we're going to need, and this will be different for different bicycles because some people will have a quick release hub. But for this one, since we have a bolt-on hub, we are going to need an inner tube, at least one tire lever, and then we've got a ratchet here with a 17mm socket. And last but not least, we have our pump. And just as a notation, you should always check your tire pressure every time that you ride your bike. Certainly because, tubes and even tubeless setups certainly will lose air just sitting stagnant, even over the course of a day. So it's certainly always important to check that. Another thing that I find handy, especially if you don't have a work stand at home, is that you can flip your bike over so that it is easier to access the wheel. Just makes it a little bit more stable and just a lot easier to work with. Now that we have our wheel off, we're going to remove the tire. There will be tires that will be much more difficult to remove than others. That's one of the reasons why we want to have the tire lever, at least one. Sometimes you might need a couple. For this situation though, I'm familiar with changing this tire. It usually just takes me one. So what you want to do is you're going to take your tire lever with the spoon side facing this way, and you will use that to lift up the bead of the tire and then begin to slide it off of the rim carefully. Like I said, this one is pretty easy to get off. Some are more difficult than others. And also, when you get to this point, once you've released this side of the bead, you want to make sure that you get your valve also removed from the tube there, from that side. And because we are going to just change the tube on this one, we don't really need to release anything else here. We can certainly pull this old tube out and then just replace it with a new one. We have the old tube out and we have our new tube. One of the things that you always want to make sure of is partially inflating your new tube with just a little bit of air so it'll give it some shape, so it's not going to get stuck, especially when you're putting the bead back on the rim where you could possibly pinch the tube and basically you'll be in the same situation that you were already. So we're going to install this now. Alright, now that we have our tube inside the tire and our valve stem is pulled through and is straight, which is super important. You do not want this at an angle because again, we can run into this issue once the tire is inflated that this could end up puncturing the tube and then you're going to be in the same position you were before. So the next step is going to be just pushing the bead back onto the rim. And you can actually do this by hand usually. It's actually fairly easy. You kind of want to start in the middle, and then you're just going to work your way around. And like I said, some tires are easier than others. Like I said, I'm very familiar with this setup. I've been running a tire similar to this one for a very long time. I kind of understand what the consistency of it is. So we do have it back on the rim now. So we are now ready to reinflate. And what we will do is we are going to put about 20 psi into the tire, and then we are going to double check to make sure that our bead all the way around the rim is actually sealed evenly. That way the tire will be roll straighter, won't have any issues with hops in the rim or anything like that, especially from the tire. Alright, now so we're getting this thing pumped up and I've got about 20 psi in the tire. We're going to double check that bead on the rim and then we can go ahead and fully inflate and then reinstall it on the bicycle. One thing to note is that if you have a newer pump, it should have a universal chuck on it. So whether you have a Schrader valve or a Presto valve, it will fit it, no problem. All right, so I've double checked the rim here. I have checked both sides. It is actually very equal all the way around. Valve stem is straight. And now we're gonna go ahead and inflate the whole thing and then reinstall it on the bike. All right, so we now have the tire back on the bike, fully inflated. And just one other side note here, you kind of want to pay attention to the direction of your tread pattern because there are a lot of tires that are actually rotational direction. So this one certainly is lined up with the rear one, same direction that it goes when it's moving forward. So we're all set to tighten this down and go take it outside and ride it around. So hopefully you found that information very helpful for you. Certainly this is something that we all have to deal with, especially as cyclists, regardless of what kind of bike it is. So thank you for watching, and hopefully we'll see you soon.